What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I want to try something new, Boxing Ego Corner, and it's very simple. It's basically before the fight, on certain fights, big fights, I want to play like I'm a cornerman, like I'm a trainer, and give my input before the fight even happens as to what each fighter should do. And I'm going to keep it fair and square by giving advice to both fighters. So, Triple G versus Lemieux is coming up this Saturday, HBO PPV. I'm really looking forward to it. So, we'll kick it off with that particular fight. And I'm going to break down things that I think are imperative that each fighter does in order to secure a victory. Now, I already did a video, 7 reasons why Triple G beats David Lemieux. That's my personal opinion and prediction. Make sure you check that video out, and let's get into Boxing Ego's corner. We'll start off with Triple G, who I believe is the favorite in this particular fight. Now, for me, Triple G needs to jab, jab, jab. He needs to establish his jab. I think he has a better jab than David Lemieux. Their arms are about the same length, but Triple G has a crisp jab. And when you have the type of power that Triple G has, a jab can actually be a punch that hurts your opponent. So I think he needs to establish that early, especially to ward off another guy with power in David Lemieux. Another thing, Triple G is excellent at cutting off the ring. He needs to do that in this particular fight. Not give David Lemieux, not that he's a fighter that backpedals or uses lateral movement much, but he needs to make sure he puts it on David Lemieux and makes him uncomfortable to the point where he might not be able to keep up mentally and physically with Triple G and his pace. Other thing, finish. Triple G is normally a good finisher, but if he gets Lemieux hurt, he has to finish him, period. Because Lemieux, I get the feeling that he has heart, and if you don't get him out of there, you don't want a guy like that lingering around, hanging around in the later rounds, because anybody with that type of power, just like Canelo versus Kirkland has power, so that means he's going to be dangerous for all 12 rounds or 10 rounds or whatever that fight was. So you got to get a guy like that out of there. So that's my advice for Triple G. If you get Lemieux hurt, don't do this like he said he wants to engage for the fans and Willie Monroe and allow a guy to survive and make it entertaining. You don't do that with somebody with the type of power of David Lemieux. You just don't. You simply don't, because that opportunity might not come again. You know what I mean? That might not arise again, i.e. Keith Thurman versus Leonard Bundu. Keith Thurman, I think, wanted to show that he can box and he's not just a guy with power. So he let Leonard Bundu off the hook. He knocked him down in the first round. He was badly hurt, and he let Bundu like move and be fidgety and to the point where he was never able to duplicate that first round success. So that, plus the fact that Lemieux has crazy power, you don't want to let a guy like that hang around just for the fans' engagement. If you get him hurt in round 1, finish him. Round 2, finish him. Don't do this thing like he says he did, allow Willie Monroe to take free shots and stuff like that. So I think Triple G needs to be a precise killer in this, and the finisher that he normally is. Other thing is head movement. Now, I'm not expecting him to be an overnight success. He doesn't really use too much head movement. But again, a guy with power, I think he wants to create a moving target a bit. And you even seen it like Canelo. Canelo used more head movement than normal when he fought Austin Trout. So I think that would work for Triple G just a little bit. You know what I mean? Just a little. Neither guy is known or renowned for their defense. So any little intricate details like that separates you from your competition, I think would help. So if Triple G incorporates a little head movement, I think that would benefit him. Now let's take a look at David Lemieux. Now, David Lemieux, his money punch to me is a left hook. He needs to land that. And that is a devastating punch for him. He has a lot of power, so I think it's very imperative that he lands it. And Triple G is an orthodox fighter, so he should have good success with that. Also, I think he needs to, this sounds trivial, but Lemieux needs to fight how he normally fights. Now, what I mean by that is every so often you have a fight, and out of nowhere, a fighter will try to refine or change the style that they've always had success with or that they've used in the past. Like even Timothy Bradley. You look at Bradley. Bradley can box. He can brawl when need be, and he used to be a bit better with turning that on and off. Now he's fighting like he's a power puncher, like he's predominantly a brawler, and that's the perfect example. So I think Lemieux needs to fight how he normally fights, that aggressive style, and be him. Don't try to all of a sudden become Vasyl Lomachenko, Floyd Mayweather, and like think too much and not let your hands go. You have to be the throw caution to the wind type of fighter, because in my opinion, that's what gives Lemieux the best chance at success of just really hurting Triple G to the point where he can't recover. So I don't think this would be wise for Lemieux to all of a sudden try to like outthink and outbox and be have a different DNA than he showed in his previous fights. Now the other thing, kind of piggybacking off of that, Lemieux needs to get Triple G's respect early. If Triple G, he has that kind of like Mike Tyson, and I'm not comparing the two, but he has that Mike Tyson aura per his division to the point where he has the fear factor, that intimidation factor. If Triple G knows he can hurt you, then it's kind of like the time your end is near. You know what I mean? If he feels he has that advantage over you. And if Lemieux wants to be in this fight, he needs to establish and assert himself and his power, so Triple G realizes like you can't just run up on me and do whatever you want and land all your shots without nothing coming back. So I think he needs to counterpunch. He needs to land punches of note that's going to really cause Triple G to think twice and deter him from coming forward. He needs to constantly be trying to push him back. And I think he needs to do that early, because you don't want a guy to figure you out and in 6 rounds, now you're trying to establish yourself. I think Lemieux needs to establish his power and let Triple G know what type. You're in a real fight. This could be a street fight. It could be whatever you want to be. He needs to do it, but he needs to do it early. Now, the other thing is stamina. Lemieux's had some stamina issues. I'm not going to get too much into his past. He's made some changes in his team, but he needs to have the stamina. So hopefully he worked on that in his training camp. And then the other thing is, don't get discouraged. Triple G has an enormous amount of power, a lot of amateur experience. Don't get discouraged, because it's a fight, and you have to realize that you have firepower too. So even if Triple G, let's say he's landing some good shots in round 1, but you're still on your feet, then don't get discouraged. Stick to the game plan. Make the changes that you need to and adapt, and keep pressing. You know what I mean? Because anybody that has home run, one punch, like I can hurt you power, they're always in the fight. And then the other thing is, last thing for David Lemieux is shorten his punches. I think he punches too wide. I think he would be better off having worked on shortening his punches in his camp. Triple G is a good counter puncher, so he needs to work on that. And then for both fighters, this is just kind of a mutual thing. I think they both need to work the body. Don't just headhunt. Work the body. And I think, especially for Lemieux, if he works Triple G's body, most people don't even get to land body shots on Triple G to that degree, because they're kind of fearful of the return fire. So I think that could shock Triple G, especially a guy with Lemieux's power, if he is able to crack to the body. You know what I mean? And it looks like Triple G has a pretty good chin. But the same thing could be said for Lemieux, a guy who's had stamina issues in the past. The head is one thing, but working him to the body, that's something else. And Lemieux looked, I'm not going to say he looked drained, but his face looked a little bit thin. So you don't know what type of training camp he had, if he had to lose a lot of weight soon. So really chopping down the tree and working the body for anyone is a word of advice, especially if Lemieux looks pretty stocky and pretty big, where he may have to cut a good amount of weight in a short period of time in order to make weight. So that's my advice. That's my corner advice. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think, how I did. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.